Health and Wellness Check-In. Today is a Sunday, 23 August 2026. I'm Tanis, Shearhers of Seattle, and here I check in for a week summary of my health and wellness, social, mental, and physical this past week, Monday 17 to Sunday 23 August 2026. It was a week with balance retained through adaptation to my devices and circumstances. And adaptation is good because of my work history and my life history and work-life balance and stuff like that. There's been, kind of taking and adapting to not be reactionary. So, that requires adaptation for me. It required to change, and be less reactionary. So there we go. As an introduction and week summary. Category 1, social health. I've fed the critters. They still got a few meals left. I fed the critters. I included neighborhood-friendly faces when out and about, including walk runs, and out and about was well-timed and paced. I previously mentioned this. So my birthday wish this year, which is celebrating with my parents and no cake, kind of like especially if I'm adopted, because we don't have one of those under a belt like I do with my birth parents. And so like if I do with my birth parents, and so it'd be cool. So we'll see if that comes to be or not. Celebrating on the birthday that was like assigned for my adopted circumstances of August 26th. And so something else is there might be a cluster of 5 for me adoptive family kind of spirit and their married family and that kind of thing. There might be a cluster of like 5 birthdays, kind of starting with my August 26th. In addition to the like 5 holidays of Labor Day, Halloween, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, that's 6, but okay, roll, Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve into one, or if you don't count one of those, fill in for that. So I was I brought up with my parents, I was like, maybe just us and like a shared birthday, since there's gonna be 5 birthdays. So I put my idea out there, and it sounds like we might do that. So I went shopping. This is part of the social. I went shopping and I got clustered / themed cards and gifts for that, as well as my parents or my adopted parents' 40th wedding anniversary. And that's one where it does matter. If my birth mom died at birth, right, then my birth parents might not have ever even had the opportunity to reach 40, right? So then 40 matters for me in celebrating my adoptive parents. But yeah, so we'll see if it goes that way. But I've whether it goes that way or not, I've bought cards and gifts already. So there we go. And then I was also like, it'd be a very me thing to do, a very me, Tanis Shearhers of Seattle thing to do. If I were living with, say, my Josh, my Jacob, and my Papa Craig, it would be like, there's a cluster of 4 across 1 year. Like maybe we could choose 5 dates and like experiment with just like celebrating everybody's together, like a shared birthday, but like what date? Doesn't have to be one of ours, but like just choose 5 dates, right? And kind of celebrate and see if we like the idea of like a shared birthday party in general. Just like we all, that way we don't forget, and we're all together and we can all celebrate each other, that kind of thing. Anyway, all right, so that's social. Mental, there's just a lot here. So mental, category 2, car oil change / maintenance went well. Homework to keep consistent on my care / upkeep of my car, a 2010 Toyota Corolla LE. So that's the car. This is a car essential. It's upkeep, care, maintenance, my own how I drive it and that kind of thing. And then for my computer, I took my computer to the Apple store. My MacBook Neo that I named Aorta and got in March 2026. They did a diagnostics run, like an official, like their own diagnostics, Apple diagnostics kit. And MacBook Neos may run fast, have speed problems. So homework was for me from the employee I worked with: software update available, adjust battery charging settings. So here we go. Software update. I downloaded the approximately 5 gigabytes twice. Update scheduled for overnight, and it did not follow through as scheduled. So I used it and slept it again to give to after 8 a.m. the following morning, and it still hadn't run the software update. So I was like, all right. So installing the software update / restarting the computer was successful. But I did that, restart now. And it took about 5 minutes for the software update. Success of the software update was communicated at sign-in. So like when it restarted and was signing it at the sign-in stage, it was communicated that it was successful. And it took about 5% of battery charge. So I did that. Adjusting battery charging settings, that homework item, it went with using normally, then software update, and then with using normally for 2 days. Day 3 went with turning off. There's an optimized battery charging until tomorrow. So I did that. What happened? The battery charged while saying battery not charging kind of thing. And day 4, I went back to having to ask to charge to full with my device. So in Alice, I was like, so the problem is here, and I'm just like, whatever. Okay, it's charging even if it is not necessarily what the visual interface is saying. Okay. So in elementary school, I had to ask to use the restroom. It has been weird having to ask to charge my computer, charged to full now. I think perhaps what the company Apple is trying to communicate to device users on some level per battery and charging settings / communications, like on the device itself, is to not take the charge of the battery below 20%, like for real. Like in like reading it, I'm like, in like reading kind of like, I think it might harm the battery, but they can't quite say that, and then people would tamper with it to make it not true, so that's a Tanis takeaway from this kind of stuff. So Tanis, she, her, hers is Seattle. Okay. Tanis Presley, perhaps, if that's my name. Okay. All right. That's my name. All right. General software update notes. There's a Tanis perspective. I do not appreciate software updates where I am paying for other people's alcohol / risky behavior. No updates and crashing of computers for particular individuals of certain conduct is better than making everyone pay for the misconduct for their misconduct, in my opinion. This is an effort for me to try not to be bitter by sharing my perspective. I do not claim it to be representative of anyone but me. Trying to phrase this one more time, and kind of like if you don't get that, it's a life thing that I kind of, so I'm going to rephrase it here. Trying one more time. 3 software updates, each of 5 GB size in a 5-month period on a device with 256 GB storage is alarming. The last 3 software updates taking up more space than everything on my computer is perhaps a questionable business model. That's my attempt at putting it objectively. Okay, numbers. And content of those numbers. Okay, all right. Anyway. Computer backups. So I also did computer backups. Multi-session and multi-day. Changed approach within sessions across days. So timing, not approach, note. Mid-morning to midday one day, and evening another day. Another day, not days. I'm going to take, I stayed, so there we go. Physical, category 303. I'm going to actually continue there. So I took a Saturday off and did computer stuffs. I'm going to keep with that for the next 2 weeks, student loans and computer backups and work on that stuff. So if you wanted to synchronize with me, that was what I did this past Saturday. Even if just being like, oh, what do I do about student loans? So the next 2 Saturdays that is for me as well, whether I covered on the channel at the time or not. Okay, so that's a physical thing, because that for me is going with no exercise. And then also PMS water weight retention and a 4 days early onset of blood flow menstruating. So I had PMS water weight retention, but then my period started and it was 4 days early in terms of blood flow. So in conclusion, happy health and wellness to you whenever you're reading this, wherever you're reading this from. It was an effort for a week from me.